Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Back in home base here after being at Amalie Arena and on location the last couple of days. So, yeah, it feels good to be home, and it feels great to be here with you. First comment of the day goes to Chris Meeks. Congratulations to Chris Meeks. You are number one on the program today. Follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Now over 1,000 subscribers. My nephew was the one that gave me the goal over 1,000. I asked him, what's my next goal? I'm thinking 2,000, 5,000. He said 10,000. So let's get the subscribers up to 10K, because the more we grow this thing, the better off it is going to be. Plenty to get into on the program today at 12:40. Josh Queipo is going to join us from Pewter Report. He's there at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. What is he seeing as far as guys that could be potentially future Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We'll get into that again at 12:40. At 1 o'clock, he stops by here for his weekly visit, the one and only Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. What is going on with the Tampa Bay Lightning? Erik's got some updates from practice as well. Nikita Kucherov not on the ice today. Neither is Andrei Vasilevsky or Zemgus Girgensons. What does he have to say about the team's play as of late and why those guys are missing? Also, Dan Lucas is going to join us at 1:30 today. And if you've heard that name before here in the Tampa Bay area, it's because he's been covering the team or covering Tampa Bay sports for over 2 decades. He's now retiring from WFLA News Channel 8. And Dan was a guy that traveled to pretty much every single Buccaneers game on the road, Lightning playoffs. Like, this guy has an abundance of memories and fantastic stories to share. He's going to join us at 1:30. It's sad. It really is. It's sad that a guy that is just, he's truly one of the best, is no longer going to be working here in the Tampa Bay area, and he's retiring. But good for him, because he has certainly deserved it. Lady Evil, always appreciate you. Rough one last night at Amalie. Chris Meeks, Jay, where are we at with the Bucks OC hunt? And that, Chris, my friend, is where we are going to start off the discussion today. The Buccaneers earlier today announced that they have finished another interview for their open offensive coordinator job, and that is the first one they've actually done in person, and that is Josh Grizzard, pass game coordinator. And if you remember that name, it is a name that Scott Reynolds, our guy from Pewter Report, has mentioned multiple times here on the program, and also Liam Cohen mentioned him late in the year. He spoke so highly of him, and here's what he had to say. I think, first of all, shout out to Josh and really the staff in general. They've done a phenomenal job throughout the whole year. This is when he was discussing the team's success on third down, which was third in the NFL this year at 48.3%. Josh Grizzard in charge of that. So when you look at Josh, a young guy, and I think you're skewing towards the younger side on the offensive side of the ball. He has worked with all aspects of the passing game, and this is according to our guys at Pewter Report: quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, running backs. Prior to coming to Tampa Bay, 5 seasons with the Dolphins, working for both Brian Flores and Mike McDaniel, quality control coach in 2019. He became Miami's wide receivers coach in 2020 and 2021, worked with guys like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, some good stuff there. A young assistant and a guy that could be the next dude stepping up into that offensive coordinator role. We mentioned some of the other guys yesterday on the program. They're going to cast a wide net, but this job is going to be much more attractive this year than it has the last couple of years. Now, one thing that I really want to keep kind of, at the top of everybody's mind here, we haven't really mentioned this, and I really haven't seen anybody else mention this here recently. The Buccaneers have to get this offensive coordinator selection decision right for this one reason: the future of Chris Godwin. Because I'm sure a lot of you remember just a couple of years ago, and as much as we did really appreciate the transparency and uh, the optimism from a guy like Dave Canales after what we experienced here from Byron Leftwich, we knew that the relationship between Dave Canales and Chris Godwin, and I'm just talking purely football, Dave Canales did not do a great job of putting Chris in a position to succeed. And that was one of the big things that Liam Cohen had on his plate going into the 2024 season. What are you going to do to make sure that Chris Godwin can get back up to that status of being one of the better receivers in all the NFL? And guys, remember this, just a couple of years ago, we were looking at Chris Godwin and we were looking at Mike Evans as 1A and 1B. Some people, I think they would maybe take Chris Godwin over a guy like Mike Evans. You're still going to have, I think, guys that like both. I think this team is better, and I think they both agree this team and this receiving core will be better if they're both out there together. I think when you look at what Mike Evans can do when he can high point the football, he's so dangerous on third down and in the red zone. And then Mike Evans, his ability to be, Chris Godwin, his ability to work in the slot, make those tough catches, be a little bit maybe more of a possession guy. I think they complement each other so well. This Buccaneers offense is really firing on all cylinders when they have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And that's another reason why going into the season, even though they drafted a guy like Jalen McMillan, I didn't think that really spelled doom for the future for Chris Godwin here in the Tampa Bay area. Because you need three guys. You need three top tier dudes. Of course, because guys get injured, but you just need a multitude of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. And when you look at the start of this season and what Chris Godwin was able to do, 50 grabs, over 500 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Like, he was on his way. Forget about a Pro Bowl season. Chris Godwin was on his way to an all-pro NFL type season. Who knows if the record of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would have been different in the regular season? Who knows if he was available in that playoff game against the Washington Commanders that the Buccaneers might not still be playing right now? We don't know. He is that good. But what we have to understand, we have to remember, and nobody thought about this going into the 2023 season with Dave Canales. Nobody was worried about the production of Chris Godwin. And then the season happened. And yes, they couldn't run the football, but that relationship between Baker Mayfield and Chris Godwin was not a strong one, to the point where that they were putting Chris in a position, and that position meaning the slot, where he was going to take advantage of some of these other defenses, taking advantage of what the other guys in this Buccaneer offense was doing. So we saw, a plateau. We saw kind of a dip, and we even heard it. I remember being at the Army-Navy game a couple of years ago in Boston when Chris Godwin's wife came out, and we remember those comments, right? And we remember the very next game where Baker was almost force-feeding the ball to Chris Godwin. It has to come naturally. And that's one thing that you could say about this Buccaneers offense when it's going well, and especially when it was firing on all cylinders this year or this past season in 2024, was Baker was finding the open man. You can harken back to the days with Tom Brady when he was here with the Bucs. It wasn't that he had to go Mike, or Chris, or Kate Otten. It was spreading the ball around. You got to keep the defense on their toes. You got to keep them honest. Obviously, it's a lot difficult to guard the receivers when you have Antonio Brown and Robert Gronkowski like we saw in 2020. But there's enough talent here, especially with the emergence of Jalen McMillan, especially with some of these other guys at the tight end spot, where you get Godwin and Evans there and you have a similar offense to what we saw in 2024. I think they'll fly high once again in 2025. But whoever the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bring in as their offensive coordinator, one of the biggest things that guy has to do is make sure that offense has a special role carved out for Chris Godwin. That has to be an onus. And especially, there's no guarantee that he's coming back. We all want him back. I think the Buccaneers want him back. I think even Chris wants to come back. He's going to be making around $20 million. I know some people are looking at him and thinking he could be the centerpiece of their receiving core. And, he's a consummate professional. He's not afraid to block. He gets all those dirty yards, dirty, dirty yards. He's doing a little bit of everything. But I want to check something real quick. Hold on, because Dave Terry said we're not working on YouTube. But yeah, we're working on YouTube. Dave, you got to fix it, brother. You got to fix it. You're messing up right now, David Terry. And I'm looking out for you, Dave, because I know you're Dave Terry, J Bird. You're not working on YouTube. I am, buddy. I just checked it. You got to go fix it, my man. That's on you. I wouldn't stop the show for many people, but Dave Terry, a big supporter, so I'm definitely doing it for you, pal. But when it comes to Chris Godwin and him coming back again, making 20 minutes, the reason why I wanted to bring this up today is because ESPN did an article of some of these guys that are going to be top tier free agents, and Chris Godwin was number 5. And one of the comments there at the end was that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to find a way to try to bring him back because they want to bring him back. And I think he wants to come back. This offense is not going to be able to reach those heights without him. I think they could still be good without him. But it's a lot different if it's Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, and then a couple of the other guys that have been 4th, 5th receivers the last couple of years, including, Rakim Jarrett and Trey Palmer. What does the future hold for a guy like Sterling Shepard? I doubt he comes back. This receiving core looks a lot better with Chris Godwin in it. And I just think it's something that we all have to be mindful of. And I'm pretty sure that the Buccaneers are. We got to put faith, and I know somebody else said it too. I have faith in Jason to make the right call. Our guy Dolan. I trust Jason to get the right guy. I'm with you. But that is something that the Buccaneers need to be weary about. They need to understand that whoever they bring in, it doesn't have to be a clone. It doesn't have to be a carbon copy of Liam Cohen, right? And of course, I think everybody wants to see somebody from the Sean McVay coaching tree. Think about how many people he's young now. We talk so much about coaching trees in football more than any other sport. Think about this, football fans. In 20 years, let's look back at the Sean McVay coaching tree. That thing has so many branches already, and he's still young as hell. When you look at how old Sean McVay is, the guy's 39. He and I are is he 30? Today's his birthday. How about that? How random is I'm sorry, the 24th. Okay, the 24th. 5 days ago, he turned 39. Wow. So I'm actually older than Sean McVay. Think about that. I am older than Sean McVay. Okay? Think about what his coaching tree is going to look like in 20 years. Insane. You look at some of the guys now, Zach Taylor and Kevin O'Connell, and then Liam Cohen, right? I mean, in 20 years, when he's still in this league and he's still working, maybe he'll be with the Rams, maybe he'll move on to, another place. But that is what's your link to Sean McVay? What's your link to Kyle Shanahan? That's almost more important than what is actually on your resume as far as the success that you have. What kind of link do you have to Sean McVay? And we see it again. Shieldhouse is getting interviewed by teams. Jaguars just finished up him. Nick Caley is another guy, the tight ends coach with the Rams. Like, it's just, if you have any of that, sprinkled on you, that McVay dust sprinkled on you, come on in for an interview. You can be our play caller. So when I look at the Buccaneers offensive coordinator spot, yeah, it's great that a guy would have the affiliation, a guy that would have the relationship with a guy like Sean McVay, because he is so creative and he's on the cutting edge of what the offensive game in football is turning to, and it's adjusting and it's going in that direction. So yeah, you want a guy like Liam Cohen. And the Jaguars, if you missed the interview with Rick Ballou yesterday from 1010XL, go listen to that and hear what he had to say about Liam Cohen. And he wasn't thrilled about his press conference either. I played it, my whole thing, the Duval thing, which has gotten over I think it was over 100,000 views on social media. You got to go check it out. It's pretty funny. But some of the things that you saw from the offense this year with Liam Cohen was that pre-snap motion. The tight ends who going into the season, if you guys remember this, going into the 2024 season, everybody was telling you that the Buccaneers tight ends couldn't block. And I got a couple of 1 minute interviews with guys after training camp this year. And I'm going to do that again for the 2025 season, where I kind of pull guys off to the side and just chatted with them a little bit. Just different than going up there and listening to the press conference like everybody else. But Cade Otton was a guy that told me the lack of a good rushing attack, it affects us too. We feel bad because we're part of the blocking scheme. It's not just on the offensive lineman. It's not just on the play caller. And I like that. I like to hear that from him. I like that ownership. I like that he and the rest of the guys, and we know with Keith and Cade Otton and Devin Culp and Payne Durham, those guys know that they can't just be pass catching tight ends. They have to be guys that are willing to help out in the running game. And we saw that this year. How many times when you go back and watch the videos, you see a guy like Payne Durham come around and wham, throw an incredible block on the defensive tackle. Like, you didn't see that under Dave Canales. So guys can be coached up. Let's always keep that in mind when you're looking at these certain players on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. And I understand that's why people may have some issues with Todd Bowles and the defense, and that's why there needs to be changes in the coaching staff, is because you saw guys on the offensive side of the ball doing things from one year to the next that you didn't see in their first year. Improvements in blocking, improvements in the passing game, improvements in the running attack. You want to be able to see that. You want to see those guys get coached up. You didn't see that on the defensive side of the ball. You haven't seen that from a guy like Joe Tron-Shoyinka. That's why I doubt that he'll be back next season. You didn't see that growth, I think, from Chris Braswell throughout the entire year. Do you guys truly believe that Yaya Diaby got better from his rookie season to his sophomore campaign? Maybe. I want to see sacks. I want to see guys that are causing fumbles, guys that are causing havoc. I think at times there is some holes in the argument about the pressure statistic. He got this many pressures. Well, that's great. You can get pressures. But what do the best quarterbacks do in the National Football League? They're able to make throws under duress and be accurate in the short passing game, in the medium passing game, and in the long passing game. So pressure doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get to the quarterback. It's a hollow statistic at times. If it doesn't translate into sacks, and if it doesn't translate you bringing the quarterback down and having tackles for loss and getting off the field on third down. Like, to me, those are the most important things, because that is a definitive stat. There's no leeway there. There's no leeway for sacks. There's no leeway for third down percent. Maybe a little bit because they can stay on the field for fourth down. But when it comes to pressures, it's people are look at that. I think they put too much stock in that. It's a maybe stat. It's an almost stat. Get the guy to the ground. Look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, these great quarterbacks around the league, Jaden Daniels. Yeah, you can get pressure on them, but if they can get outside the pocket and run 35 yards down the field, who gives a shit about pressure? It doesn't mean anything. But again, going back to where we started here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to make sure whoever they bring in at that offensive coordinator spot is going to be a guy that is going to accentuate the strengths of a guy like Chris Godwin. Because if it's not, then don't pay him. Then don't bring him back. Because if this offense is going to be more like Dave Canales says, and I don't want it to, and I'm sure everybody else doesn't want that either. You want more of a Liam Cohen type offense than the Dave Canales offense. But if you're going to bring in a guy and his focus is elsewhere than putting Chris Godwin in the slot, which I think would be idiotic to say the least, then don't bring Chris back. But just think about that when I say those words and they come out of my mouth. That sounds idiotic in itself. We want Chris Godwin back. Is there anybody here you're watching today? Is there anybody here that doesn't want Chris Godwin back? This offense is better with him. And I know he's coming off of a second season-ending injury. And I think that should help when it comes to the competition. And some teams could be weary. There's T. Higgins out there, right? He's the other big name when it comes to the wide receiver spot. But I don't know. It makes too much sense to bring him back. But that offensive coordinator spot, make sure he's a guy that did what Liam did. Get him in the slot, let him go out there and do his thing. David Terry bringing it up. We'll let everybody know. Josh Grazar just got done with an interview. We announced that to start the show today. Everybody, let me know. What do you think about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, this Tampa Bay Lightning team. And we're going to get into the Tampa Bay Lightning talk right now. Okay. So first off, Lightning back in action tomorrow night at Amalie Arena. Okay. And when you look at their play as of late, right, not good enough. Not good enough at all. And I know Andrei Vasilevsky didn't play last night. I understand that. And it's going to be a lot tougher to win when you don't have the big cat between the pipes. But that is a Chicago Blackhawks team that literally just traded one of their best players, Taylor Hall. They have Connor Bedard, right? But the talent, the cupboard is very bare after that young star. And it is inexcusable that the Tampa Bay Lightning lost that game last night. You scored the first goal. You're up 1-0. You have a 4-minute double minor power play because Patrick Maroon was in the box. You had multiple chances on the man advantage to cash in, and they weren't able to do it. I want to hear from you guys. What is your thought on this Tampa Bay Lightning team? Do you think they have what it takes to make another long postseason run? Because when I look at this team, there's something missing when it comes to the Bolts. There's something when I'm watching them, I don't get. I don't see the snarl. I don't see the identity. I don't see the consistency. And I'm not talking about the top end guys, but top end teams, they're not there at the end of the year. This is the National Hockey League. You need to have depth. When I ask a lot of people, why did the Tampa Bay Lightning win those back-to-back cups? You know, one of the first reasons that everybody brings to the forefront, that third line with Goodrow, Gord, and Coleman. Hell, the team was trying to replicate that for years after. Everybody keeps bringing that up. What can they do? Nobody was bitching and moaning and complaining about depth scoring when those guys were on the team. You knew who the top 6 guys were. You knew where those guys stood. You knew the fourth line was going to be Maroon and Belmar and whether it was a Ross Colton or whether it was Matthew Joseph or a Volkov. Like, this team is still lacking an identity. Are they better than they were last year? I think in parts they are. Jake Gensel has been a fantastic addition. I think bringing Ryan McDonough back on the blue line has been a huge boost. I love the acquisition of J.J. Moser, and I think their defense is going to get better when he returns. I saw him actually talk to J.J. Moser for about 10 minutes yesterday in the Tampa Bay Lightning locker room. He's in great spirits. Julian Breezewald, Lightning general manager, said the other day that he probably could come back before the break for the Four Nations, but why? You're going to go on a little bit of a vacation after that. There's no reason to rush him back. But when the Lightning and all the teams in the NHL come back after that Four Nations break, I fully expect J.J. Moser to be lined up with Victor Hedman on that top D pair. I expect Erik Erlendsson and Ryan McDonough to be your second pair. And then the third pair, we'll see. Lilleberg, Radish, Crozier, Perbix. 4 guys for 2 spots. But when I watch this team, there's just something off. There's something missing. And I don't see a team that is capable right now of making a long postseason run. I just don't see it. They make little mistakes. They blow leads at the end of games. You look at last night, okay? Nikita Kucherov, who wasn't skating today, meaningless turnovers at times, kind of just threw. There was a play last night where he just threw the puck in front of the Tampa Bay Lightning net, and it was almost like he was in the wrong zone. The second goal to put the Blackhawks ahead, a clear giveaway from Victor Hedman. At times, Heddy's just trying to make that home run pass, and he fires that puck into the neutral zone, and it's an erroneous decision. It winds up on the stick of the other team. And like what happened last night, 30 seconds later, boom, the puck is in the back of your net. You have to take care of the puck. Puck management above all else. I also look at Mikey Eyssimont last night. You're down 3-1. You're down 3-1 in the game last night. Connor Bedard trips up Erik Erlendsson. You're about to go on a power play. You're 0 for 3 on the power play before that. That's fine, but you still have all of these guys that are top-tier dudes on the man advantage. That is your opening to get back into the game. And what does Acemont do? He goes up to Connor Bedard and he freaking face washes him into the boards with a hit after the whistle. What the hell are you thinking? That is not a smart play. For all the talk about how good the Lightning team were the last couple of years, you know what they didn't do? They didn't make stupid plays. They didn't look at a team and go, all right, we're going to let them into the game. We're going to let them hang around. And they didn't look at an opportunity of like, wow, here's the power play chance that we've been waiting for to try to get back into this game. Here's the door opening a little bit. Let's kick that son of a bitch open and get back into this thing. No, last night, like Mikey Acemont did, they slammed the door in their own face. I know we just had this discussion with Julian Breezeball the other day on Monday. And I'm so very fortunate and lucky and honored that I'm a part of this conversation every single year with the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's been 3 years running. And we sit there with Julian and he tells us, and he's very transparent and honest with his thoughts on the team. One of the things, or actually the main thing, the thing that he started with was the numbers. And he thinks that there is going to be a correction to what those numbers tell you. And I get that to an extent. Because let's not forget, Julian's a capologist. Julian's a numbers guy. He makes the numbers work. I get that. I understand that. But we all have to understand, and especially everybody that thinks that they know the game just because they can look at the standings or look at the schedule. And I think that's the biggest crock of shit around the entire continent with people, and they think they know hockey, and they swear they know the game. Think about it. I listen to radio stations all across the country. And when they slip in 35 seconds of hockey talk, they're just going to tell you what the schedule is. Well, they've lost 7 of 10, and they're 4th in the standings, and they're 1st in the wild card. That's bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about. Watch the game. Tell me what you're seeing in the game. That's true analysis of the game. That's what hockey is all about. That's what sports is all about. I hate turning on any radio station. I'm not talking clearly and solely here in Tampa. If it happens in Tampa, fine, it happens. I don't hear it. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I hear it all over the country. When they slip in this minuscule amount of Lightning talk, or not Lightning talk, but hockey talk. And it's like, well, here's the upcoming schedule. They've lost 6 of 10. They're 4 games out in the wild card, but they have 5 games in hand. That's not analysis. You're reading off of ESPN.com. Any slapdick that's in their parents' basement can do that. Talk hockey. Tell us what you see. Don't just give me numbers. I hate that. I hate it in baseball more than anything else. Because you get people that haven't even picked up one of these things telling me why a guy's good and why a guy can swing and why a guy can hit when they've never even stepped into the box. You get people that try to tell you about hockey that have never laced up a pair of skates. Not saying you have to be an NHL player, but if you've never held a hockey stick in your hand, if you've never went top shelf where mama keeps the peanut butter, if you've never gotten your ass freaking body checked in the neutral zone and had to wake up watching the birdies go around your head, I'm sorry. Don't tell me you think you know what the hell you're talking about. I don't like this whole thing of like, all right, this is what the numbers tell us, so this is why the team's going to be good. I don't give a shit about the numbers. I don't. You know what I care about? I care about when I watch this team, I don't see the it factor right now. I don't see it. I see a team that can score. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the team that got their asses swept in the first round of the playoffs against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The team that didn't try to outplay you, the team that tried to outscore you. I don't give a crap where this Tampa Bay Lightning team falls in the goals for category. Don't care. Means absolutely nothing to me. The goals allowed, 10 times more important in my opinion. But it's not just about the numbers. It's about watching this team. It's about the intelligence. It's about the intangibles. And you know what made it stand out more last night than any other night? The guy that was on the other team wearing number 77. The guy that I sat down with in the locker room after the game last night, Stephanie, who just checked in. Hello, Stephanie. Stephanie said, "Where was your post-game interviews last night?" Because usually I do my videos of the Lightning locker room and then John Cooper. Well, instead of being in the Lightning locker room, I decided to go to the Chicago locker room because I needed to talk to Pat Maroon for my Ryan McDonough story. And as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to Patrick Maroon speak, I was thinking to myself, who is this guy on the Bolts? Who is that character in that room? I don't see it. I don't see it. I know, and I'm not saying Patrick Maroon needs to be back on the Bolts, because obviously we look at it and he's never been the fleetest of foot, okay? And he's not going to get faster as he gets older. But there's something about character. There's something about swag. There's something about that belief that regardless of what the score is, not only are you going to make the smart play, but you're going to come back and put yourself in the team, put your team in a position to win, and you're actually going to win the damn game. I don't see that with this Lightning team right now. It doesn't mean that it can't be fixed. It doesn't mean that you can't bring a guy in to change it. But there's something off with this team, and I am not willing to bank my experience and my just my perception and my prediction or my thoughts on a correction of numbers. You don't win games on paper. You win them on the ice. You win them with guys putting their skates on. Some of the most valuable people during the Tampa Bay Lightning's success during the Stanley Cup years were some of the worst players when it came to points per game. Why did the Lightning adjust from one year to the next? Why? Why did they take 1 year where they were the best team in the regular season, one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen, and got their asses swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they were able to come right back and win back-to-back cups? Why? Did Stammer score 80 goals? Did Cooch score 200 points? Did Victor Hedman score 100 points? No. What did they do? Tell me the two people they brought in. Think about this. For all the people that swear they know hockey, okay? The biggest adjustment that the Lightning made from the year they got swept to the very next year was the two of the guys they brought in the offseason. Not talking about the midseason pickups. Not talking about Goodrow and Coleman, okay? But before the season, who were the two guys that they brought in? Can anybody tell me? They brought in the guy I just mentioned, Pat Maroon, and they brought in Kevin Shattenkirk. Those two guys. You brought in, where did they play? Where did they play? Patrick Maroon was your fourth line left winger, and Kevin Shattenkirk was your third pairing right defenseman. You're talking about guys, your bottom two defensemen, your bottom three forwards. Why did they make an impact? Did Shatty and Maroon all of a sudden score 20 goals each in that year? No. They had character. They had grit. They had experience. They made smart plays. Kevin Shattenkirk with that big goal in the final. Remember that one? Amazing. Pat Maroon doing a little bit of everything, being a pain in the ass in the front of the on that second power play unit. How many times did that fourth line have the puck in deep behind the opposition's net in 2020 and 2021? When you face other teams' fourth line, usually it's a breather. Oh, okay, you don't have to go against the Stars. Not when those guys were playing. I am imploring and I'm just begging this Tampa Bay Lightning team. You need depth scoring. Yes, 100%. You need guys to take some of the onus off of Nikita Kucherov, off of a guy like Braden Point, off of Jake Gensel, off of Hagel and Cirelli. Outside of those five guys, who the hell is going to be able to step up? I'll throw Nick Pohl in there. Out of those six guys, after that, who is going to step up and make some plays? I know it's a lot to ask of 20-year-old Connor Geekie, but again, he is here. He's on the big club. He's got to get up there and do something offensively. Atkinson, he doesn't play all that much. Gonsalves, Chafee. The fourth line guys, Gergensons, Glendening, Asimont. Like, you got to get more from these guys. They have to contribute. And I'm not just talking about putting the puck in the back of the net. You need that. but you need more character. You need more grit. You need more of everything so that this team is firing on all cylinders and peaking at the right time when we get to the postseason. I don't want to fall back on numbers. I think when you do that, that is a losing mindset. You're hoping that things correct themselves. Hope is for losers sometimes, man. Action over hope. Action. Go out there and make a damn difference. Go out there and grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Who is willing this team to victory when they're not putting the puck in the back of the net? Go back, and I want you to go back and go look at Yanni Gourde's game log from a couple of years ago when he went like 50 games without scoring a goal. You know why nobody gave two shits about it? Because that guy was in front of the net. That guy was battling in the corner. He was drawing penalties. He was killing penalties. He was doing everything. That is what you need on this team. And I'm not talking about specifically Patrick Maroon. I'm not talking specifically about Yanni Gourde. You're not going to go out and go bring back Steven Stamkos. Like, that's not reality. But you need more people to be able to step up and not take no for an answer. I want more. I want more from this team. And don't get me, I heard a couple of people say, like, bring back Anthony Duclair. No, I don't want any part of Anthony Duclair. He came in really well, played with Point and Kucherov, and then he disappeared by the end of the playoffs. He didn't make much of an impact at all. And that's why, great guy. Duclair's a great guy, but that's why he's played on so many teams. He's been inconsistent. At times you're looking at him like, dude, this could be a top 6 forward. Sign him up, long-term extension. But then he trails off, and then you don't hear his name for a couple of weeks. I like the top-end scoring with this team. I like Gensel. I like Kucherov. I like Point. And for the love of God, and I don't know what it looks like today, and Erik Erlendsson can hopefully tell us more about it at 1 o'clock. The experimentation with the power play, like, we need to be done with that. Victor Hedman needs to be on your top power play unit with Nikita Kucherov, with Jake Gensel, with Braden Point. Those are your 4 guys. I'd like to see Darren Radish over in the Steven Stamkos spot. I thought he was too deferential to start the season, passing the puck. Son, shoot the puck. Shoot the ever-loving puck on net. When he's the quarterback of the power play, it's a little bit better. The dude's got a cannon. I don't want a left-handed shot in that spot that we've seen Stamkos make his hay for freaking decade. Fire. You have a lefty over there. You're making your entire power play worse. Now those incredible cross-ice feeds that Nikita Kucherov can do better than any freaking player in the National Hockey League. If you don't have a right-handed shot with a decent slap shot, you're undermining one of the best power plays that we've seen in the last decade. This game is different last night. If Braden Point is in the slot where he scored 20 freaking power play goals last year and not Mitchell Chaffee. Braden Point is not a guy that is a big slap shot guy. Go look at his goals. What percentage of his goals are of the slap shot variety? Under 2%? I don't want him on the boards. I want him around the net. He has scored more goals in the last 2 years in that spot, in what we used to call the box, in the slot, than anybody in hockey. Not just on the power play, but 5-on-5. So why the hell is he going farther away from the net? Why is that a solution to the woes on the power play? Get him to where he needs to be. Put freaking Braden Point smack dab in the middle of the net. Put Kucherov in his office on the right. Put Gensel right down by the net. Puck retrieval master. He can pass to anybody. Put Hedman where he needs to belong, right at the top. And then put Radish where Stamkos was. And you say, Darren Radish, shoot the puck every freaking time it comes to you. That's the solution to the power play. Trying to do too many damn things, trying to get too fancy on the man advantage. And then you get your ass bit like you did last night. And you lose to a clearly inferior team when you have multiple opportunities to score goals on the power play. That was a rough game to watch last night. And I promised John Cooper I'd never say that I'm not watching this team again. And I will always watch the Bolts, but they got to pick it up because the way they've been playing, especially on the man advantage, is unacceptable. All right, let's flip the script and let's go to Mobile, Alabama. And let's chat with our guy, Josh Queipo from Pewter Report. Brother, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with me. How are you?
Jay, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on. Very excited to be here from Mobile in a surprisingly warm day that's got me regretting some of my outfit choices for the trip.
Hey, if you're gonna change your outfit, just make sure you do it after you hop off with us here on the stream, my brother, because
Gotcha.
I don't want to get nailed by the FCC. All right, so the one name that keeps jumping out, what is this? Mike Green?
Mike Green.
Mike Green. This guy, edge rush. Everybody, like, I open up my timeline before, and all I keep seeing is Mike Green. Mike Green. He's going crazy. This guy, like a bull in a china shop. This guy.
Yeah, so I mean, it really started with his production at Marshall, and he's got such a deep bag of tricks. Just about any way that you can think of a pass rusher winning from a stylistic or technical standpoint, it's all over his tape. Now, some of the questions coming into Mobile this week were, one, his size and just his overall measurements. He checked some of those boxes when he weighed in at 251 pounds. He still has shorter arms, which can be an issue for edge rushers. It has not been an issue for him this week. Yesterday, he flashed some fantastic bend in terms of how he gets around the corner, his the flex that he has in his ankles and his hips. And then today, he just went through guys' faces. Like, he has checked the box on power as well. So he's done everything he can to solidify himself as a potential first-round pick. I think the only thing NFL teams may still have an issue with is, do they think that the arm length issue will become a bigger issue when he gets to the NFL?
Yeah, and I know. And if you guys want to see 8 players that were buzzing by the end of practice, Josh Queipo did a great job putting this out last night about 8:50, the Senior Bowl Day 1 defensive standouts. I'm with you, man, as far as the measurements go. But Josh, I'm one of those guys that I don't give a crap if you can tie your shoes standing straight up. That doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't, because at the end of the day, that's just almost a kind of a qualification. Give me the intangibles. Give me a guy like Mike Green that is just bull rushing guys. Do you think at times people take too much out of these analytics and they knock guys when at the end of the day, if he's a good football player, he's a good football player?
Yeah, I think that there's a balance between the two. I think you have to recognize, well, what does arm length mean, and how does it prevent that person from winning, and then how do they overcome it? I think a great example on the Bucs roster right now on the other side of the ball was Luke Gedeke. He was profiled as an interior offensive lineman after playing offensive tackle his entire collegiate career because he had shorter arms. Like, that was the issue most people thought he had. And I remember asking Luke about it in training camp last year, like as he transitioned to tackle. And I was like, hey, what do you think about your arm length and how it could hamper you? And he goes, it's the only arms I have. Like, and I figured out how to use them, right? And it has not been an issue for Gedeke. Can it be an issue for some people? Yes. But with Green, I think he overcomes that because he has such violent hands and they're so active. He keeps offensive linemen's hands off of him, and he stays outside of their reach. And that allows him to overcome that physical shortcoming through his technical prowess. And then again, such a deep bag of tricks. He can win the corner. He's got a great near chop. He's got a fantastic rip move to get the corner with that he pairs with his bend. And then he's got that wicked inside spin. So when you add that, and the way he wins, I think, is such a compliment to what the Bucs already have in Yaya Diaby. They have that power pocket crasher. What they really have been lacking since Shaq Barrett was in his prime was somebody who can win on the high side. And that's what Mike Green provides. He's one of a couple of guys who have been here in Mobile who have that ability, which is something that I think the Bucs really need to seek as a complement to Diaby, Vita Vea, and Kalijah Kancey, who are all winning and compressing the pocket on the inside.
Josh, give me the position groups that you think the Buccaneers are keeping an eye on, probably, at the top of their list there in Mobile.
Linebackers got to be number one. Yeah, I think that you're potentially going to see a huge change at the linebacker position just in general. Right now, the only linebacker from the 53-man roster that was supposed to be there at the beginning of last year that's under contract is Servassier Dennis. KJ Brick is a free agent. I don't think they pursue him. Levante David is a free agent. Obviously, if he wants to continue to play, I think the Bucks re-up with him. It remains to be seen whether they extend a contract to JJ Russell, who's an exclusive rights free agent. But I think the Bucks know that they lacked athleticism at that position group last year, and they need to get more athletic so that they can cover the seams, they can cover the middle of the field. They have somebody who can run the pole and cover too. And so there are some guys who have flashed at the linebacker position here in Mobile who I think they potentially have their eye on.
Who is it? Some of those guys? I know you wrote about him yesterday.
Yeah, my favorite is Jeffrey Bassa out of Oregon. And with Bassa, the number one thing he has is that athleticism. He's a converted safety. So 226 pounds, he runs so well, so fluid in his hips. And what I think the Bucks will really like, and especially head coach Todd Bowles, is he's very, very smart. I got a chance to speak with him after his practice, and there was a particular rep in 11-on-11s where he had an extremely impressive play where he picked up a crossing route that was developing behind him. So he literally felt it out, what was happening, how the offense was trying to attack them, the defense. And he follows the crosser all the way across the field. And then as it bends up vertically up the sideline, he sticks with it. There's no window for the ball to get into, and he ends up breaking up the pass. So I asked him about it after practice. He recalled the rep immediately, and he was so detailed and nuanced in this. We were in cover 3. They had a tight split. I figured there was going to be play action. I was feeling for this. I thought that they would try and manipulate the defense this way. That's why I was able to pick up the crosser. And then it just became me out athleting, the guy and sticking with him on his hip pocket. And this wasn't a tight end running a crosser. This wasn't a running back running her. This was a wide receiver running a crosser on him. And he stuck on his hip pocket. So that combination of his awareness, his ability to recognize what was going on, to detail, I think all of that is something that Todd Bowles looks for. It had me, the Bucks run that great series In the Current. And if you remember when they were going through the draft process last year and they showed their interview with Tyke Smith, it had me reminded of those interviews with Tyke Smith. I thought Bassa was very clearly a skill set that the Bucks need in that linebacker room, and he certainly impressed me. Somebody else from yesterday was Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. I don't know if the Bucks will necessarily be in on him, but he had a good day. Things that were developing in front of him, he was staying on the one-on-one drills with running backs. He looked really good. And then earlier today, just got done with the national practice, Cody Lindenberg out of Minnesota had a few really great reps in running back, linebacker one-on-ones, which are not designed to be friendly to linebackers. So those were 3 of the linebackers who have kind of caught my eye over these last 2 days.
Man, that's really good, thorough stuff. Where could you see Bassa going in what round?
It's so hard for me to say right now. I'm so early on my board. I would say a day 2 guy, probably 3rd round, maybe late 2nd round at this point. A lot will come down to his testing in Indianapolis, which I expect him to do really well at. And then how do NFL teams see him at 226 pounds? Are they going to ask him to bulk up? I asked him about that. He said he's fine with bulking up. He definitely has the frame to do so. But I would see him as a day 2 pick right now.
What about all right, let's say Bassa is a day 2 pick. So he's not 1st round pick. So then if you had your druthers, what are the Buccaneers going to do with that 1st round pick then? Because is there a linebacker at that position that they would be able to take? Because it doesn't seem like that. It seems like there's a lot of edge guys, and it seems like that's the position they're going to focus on there.
Edge or corner would, okay, I think, be a place that they could go into. So we talked a little bit about Mike Green. I think another one who's really improving his draft stock as potential 1st round pick would be Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. Very similar to Green in terms of a deep bag of tricks, a little bit on the lighter side, but he wins that high side. He's an arc bend guy. The question with him coming into Senior Bowl, can he set a heavy edge? Is he a 3-down player? Is he more of a designated pass rusher? He's set a really good edge in run defense. He's shown some pop. Something I didn't really see on his tape coming into Senior Bowl was the heavy hands. And then he won clean on day 1 with an absolutely amazing club move where he just knocked the offensive tackle about a foot to his left and said, I don't even have to rip through this. I can get right to the quarterback. So it was nice to see that heavy hand and see a little bit more power to his game. So I think that he's somebody with the Bucks pick at 19, it might be a little bit of a reach, but it would be them reaching for a skill set that they haven't had in a while, betting on ceiling. And the last time they did that was Kalijah Kancey, and it worked out pretty well for them. So he would be one. And then a couple of corners who have really stood out. I think one who could be a day one guy is Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. He's got the size, length, speed. He had a really great day one. I was really impressed with him. And then this morning I got a chance to just key in a little bit more on the national team corners. And there were two that kind of popped for me. Quincy Riley out of Louisville. He's somebody I'm not going to say his game is a lot like Quinyon Mitchell, who was a first-round pick for the Eagles last year and had a fantastic rookie season. But in terms of didn't have a lot of notoriety coming into the Senior Bowl and has shown out, and now people are taking a heavier look at his game and really getting impressed. I think he's somebody, not the prototypical outside corner that the Bucks go for, because he's only 5'10" and I think 3/8. But if you're looking for the size, speed combo that the Bucks typically look for, look no further than Darian Porter out of Iowa State. 6'2", 197 pounds, almost an 80-inch wingspan. And he's been showing out here today with some really impressive reps. So yeah, I think those are some corners who have really showed out, who could be on the Bucks radar.
It's so funny because I had my buddy Luke Easterling on last week, and we were talking about Quincy Riley out of Louisville too. And, doing my research on him, looking at Luke's mock draft, and I think he had him in the 3rd round, I started watching some tape and looking at him and going, that's not really a Todd Bowles type corner. Because one thing, and people ask me, why does Jamel Dean play? Why did Carlton Davis and Zion McCollum? I go, one thing that you don't see with Bucks corners that you see with other teams, those guys make tackles in space. Those guys will keep things in front of them, and they'll just be all right, they're not going to get out-muscled. Right. And when that Buccaneers defense the last couple of years, and I'm looking at when it was Dean and Davis together, you couldn't run the football on them. Everything to the outside, it was you can't even go outside because those guys are going to bring you down. But unfortunately, the Buccaneers and Todd Bowles haven't been able to find that combination of a guy that's 6'1", but also has that ball hawking skills. And that's what I saw from Quincy. It was he's not the prototypical size, maybe, and maybe not the greatest open field tackler, but he's probably got better ball skills than the guys that they brought in the past too. Do you think that's going to be kind of the balance? It's hard because there's got to be an adjustment. Not nearly enough takeaways last year, but they need a Trevon Diggs, right? Maybe leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes to the one-on-one, defensive back play, but a guy that can listen, you can turn the tide of a game with some of these interceptions. And Josh, they just haven't had many guys like that, especially at the corner spot.
Yeah, I think what the Bucks are probably going to target, not necessarily somebody who has a lot of interceptions, but at least ball disruptors. Mm-hmm. So you look at, can they break up passes? Can they actually get their hands on the ball? I'm sure hands is going to be a part of the skill set that they're looking for. Can they, peanut punch? Can they create forced fumbles? So turnovers in just every sense of the word and just getting their hands to the ball. One thing that I think the Bucks really like about Zion McCollum's game for this past year, and it wasn't perfect, but he was 3rd in the NFL in pass breakups. Mm-hmm. And those over time tend to turn into interceptions at a certain point. And I'll go back to Zion real quick. There were only 6 cornerbacks in the entire NFL who had more interceptions than he did last year. He only had 2. Mm-hmm. Interceptions are not a common staple for an individual. What you're hoping for is you get enough of these ball disruptors who get 1 to 2 picks. You do that over 6-7 positions, and now all of a sudden you're starting to lead the NFL in interceptions. So I think they've got a guy in Zion. I think Antoine Winfield Jr. healthy, he showed what he could do a couple years ago in terms of as a ball disruptor. But I think you are going to find that the Bucks are going to target somebody who can be a disruptor, whether that's interceptions, pass breakups, forced fumbles, some combination thereof. It is going to be high on their list of traits that they're looking for to complement Winfield, to complement McCollum.
Give me a position group that maybe is flying under the radar, because I think initially you look at, all right, need a pass rusher, need a linebacker, need a corner. The tackle, I think, is another one. You can never have enough guys on the defensive line. But is there any other position group, maybe somebody somewhere on the offense, where the Buccaneers could take a mid-round pick? Because I don't think they're going to lose a top-round pick. But what other position group could they possibly be looking at?
Well, I mean, if you look at all of the starting positions on the offense, there's only 2 where they have pending free agents, and that's wide receiver Chris Godwin and then left guard Ben Bredeson. I think the Bucks probably would like to see both of them back, but even if they do bring them back, Bredeson won't be on a long-term deal. And Godwin and Mike Evans, one of them's approaching 30, the other is over 30. So you have to start thinking about there is going to be a time in the future where those two are not with the Bucs anymore.
Maybe 12 years from now.
Possibly, yes. I think we would all love to see both of those guys have a Levante David-esque kind of aging curve there, or Tom Brady even. So I do think that Jason Light said in the past he wishes there were like 15 rounds to the draft so he could just keep drafting offensive linemen. So there's always that potential that if they fall in love with an offensive lineman, they could grab one in the middle there. But I think wide receiver would be also a position because it is a deep wide receiver group. It tends to be every year, and it's a position where it's easy to kind of take a stab in the mid rounds and potentially find a guy. Jalen McMillan was a great example of that, somebody they took in the mid rounds last year. And towards the end of the year, he really started to pop, and he could be the future of that wide receiver room. You could pair somebody with McMillan because beyond McMillan, the Bucs have not gotten a lot out of Trey Palmer, out of Rakim Jarrett. I know they're pretty high on Cameron Johnson, but at his size, can he hold up, in an NFL environment? So I think that is another position group that they could target. And then sneakily, because it is a deep tight end class, the Bucs got a lot out of their tight end room, but Queipo is going to be a free agent after this year. I do expect them to extend Cade Otton. Payne Durham had some flashes. Devin Culp had some flashes, but nobody's really cemented themselves as somebody that you're like, yes, the future is built on this guy outside of Otton. So a late round flyer on an athletic tight end would not surprise me either.
Josh, what is your take of the top 5 spots in the NFL draft as far as Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, where they could end up? And then also some things that we've been seeing is the excitement around a guy like Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback, and we've seen some incredibly gifted things out of him, and now seeing some things today that some people actually like him as QB2 after Cam Ward instead of Shedeur Sanders. What do you make of all that?
I think QB2 is a bit much. Jackson Dart he's so polarizing. I've seen lists where he's not in a guy's top 10. I've seen some lists where he's a top 5 quarterback. I think it's going to come down to fit for him, and a lot of draft analysis comes down to not what did a guy do, but what do you think he can do, even if he hasn't been asked to do that in the past. So it's going to be separating him from Lane Kiffin's system and saying from a trait standpoint, what do we think we can develop? I don't think Dart's going to go on day 1 of the draft, maybe a day 2 guy. As far as Sanders, I think the Raiders connection could be one for him. And then with Cam Ward, I see the Giants potentially like finding a way to pull him in. So those would probably be the best landing spots. I think for those particular guys, especially with the Giants, I think they have to do something to land the quarterback that they absolutely want, because for Dayball and Shane, they have to hit on that. Like that has to be priority number 1 for them. So that's kind of how I see those shaking out in terms of the top 5.
Josh Queipo, Pewter Report, crushing it over there at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Josh_Queipo over there on Twitter/X, and go just put the little tab on the top of your screen, pewterreport.com. Just keep refreshing, and you'll be able to hear what everybody's got going from our guys over at Pewter Report. Josh, you're the man. Appreciate you joining on the show. Let's do it again soon, buddy.
Sounds great, Jay. Thank you so much.
You got it, pal. Josh Queipo, he is all over it, the entire Pewter Report crew, and I appreciate Josh coming and hopping in the car real quick and chatting with us. It's exciting. It's exciting to see what the future holds when it comes to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, because that defensive side of the ball, you kind of know where they need to go when it comes to the draft. You got to throw numbers at this situation. I don't care if it's a corner. I don't care if it's a pass rusher. It'd be great to see a guy like Mike Green out there, but they need help. They need help. They need to be coached better on that side of the ball. Obviously, they're going to have to bring in some new coaches because some of those guys are free agents. But the players, right? As much as we want to talk about coaches, you want to talk about front office and drafts, all that jazz, you need good players. You need talent. You can't win without talent. And when you look at this Buccaneers team on the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot there. Excited to see if they can fortify. I don't think they bring Ben Bredeson back. For some reason, I don't know why it is, but you got Elijah Klein there. You can draft another guy. You can get maybe a cheaper alternative in free agency. Good guy, very liked, very well respected. But I mean, you look at his overall numbers. Not great. Not great. He's an average to slightly below average guard. I think the Buccaneers could do better there. And if they do that, I think the rushing attack and just the overall offense could be better in 2025. All right. It is 1:00 on a Wednesday. You know what that means? Our guy Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. Use that promo code JNZ, get $10 off. Not just this season, but every recurring season after that. What's up, Double E? How are you?
I'm good, man. What's going on?
Oh, just talking some light. Actually kind of freaked out a little bit at like 12:30, about 12:30 about the Lightning a little bit. I got a little passionate, a little fiery about the team because I'm not sold on like, hey, the numbers are there. They're just going to automatically get better. And I watch this team, and I look at them and, there's talent, there's high end talent, but like there's no depth scoring. I don't know what this team's identity is. I hate watching a power play where Mitchell Chafee's in Braden Point's spot and Victor Hedman, who's one of the top 5 defensemen on the planet, it's not even on the first power play unit. Like, I feel like this far into the season, you should know where certain guys need to be, and you should know what a team's identity should be. And and I don't see it.
That's a lot to take in.
But yeah, I think you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, I got you.
One of those people that are like, fire this guy, trade for this guy. But it's just, we sat there, you were there, we were listening to Julian, and I always feel that if you are a team, you're a franchise, and you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, or you're just waiting for the numbers to balance out, like, you got to go make things happen. You can't just wait for the world to be like, it's your turn, right? Like, they got Maroon, they got Shattenkirk, like they went out and got Goodrow and Coleman. They finally traded first round picks, right? Instead of being like, let's hold on to these things like Stevie Y did. Like, sometimes you got to go out there and you got to churn the butter yourself. And I just feel like so many times with this team, if it's not Kucherov and it's not Point, it's not the top guys, like, they're just kind of looking around and waiting for something to happen. I don't know if that's a kind of a recipe for success. What say you?
Well, I don't know if they're waiting for something to happen. Let's start with the numbers, right? Julian pointed them out, and he's not wrong. The numbers, there are a lot of strong numbers that favor that this team should be higher in the standings. And, just this past couple of weeks, you look at some of the games, like you look at the Montreal game, like they should have won that game 5-2. Right? They got goalied. They got goalied by Sam Montembeault. They got goalied in Los Angeles by Darcy Kemper. They dominated the LA Kings for a majority of that game. Couldn't score, and certainly lack of scoring depth factors into that, because it's great you got the only team with 4 20-goal scorers, but who is kind of supporting that? I mean, we were so high on Anthony Cirelli. I think did we have the conversation that Anthony Cirelli was going to hit 30 goals this year? I was like,
yeah.
I don't know.
We were wondering.
It's Anthony Cirelli, right? I mean, and he's had a great start, and and he's had a couple of really good looks here in the last little bit. And earlier in the year, they were going in for him. Right now, they're not going in for him, and part of that is hockey. It's just hockey. It just happens that way throughout the course of a season. So the numbers are there, but as we know, analytics do not tell the entire story. There is an eye test, and the game is not played via analytics. The game is played on the ice, and we know how much instincts are utilized in this game. Passion is a big part of this game. So a lot of that, look, you talk about team identity. I think the team identity is they work hard. You can fault them for not scoring. You can fault them for losing games. You can't fault their effort. I mean, they're showing in Detroit on Saturday at the end of that grueling stretch of 14 games in 24 days. Again, they should have won that game. They got goalied, and it's been happening a lot. I mean, look, even John Cooper used the phrase last night that we're making every goalie we faced right now look like a Vezina candidate. And that was the case last night against Soderblom, right? Like, they had enough scoring chances in that game that they should have had more than one goal. So it's a dry spell right now. I think what you have to hope, and to kind of steal an analytical phrase, they regress to the mean, right? Like, you got to hope that those scoring chances start to pay off. And I think they will. There is a lot of talent on this team. And it is frustrating, but I can tell you, I don't think there's anybody more frustrated than the coaching staff right now, because they see that their guys are doing a lot of good things. And what happens when you're not scoring the goals, this team has defensive warts. There is no doubt about it. And when you're not, I don't want to say outscoring your problems, but when you're not scoring goals to maybe cover up some of the mistakes, all of a sudden the mistakes are very glaring because they're costing you games, just like the game against Montreal, where you do everything in the third period to go out and win a game that's tied 2-2 going to the third period. You can't score, and then you make a mistake, whether it's coverage mistake, whether it's somebody stepping up and trying to eliminate a play and you don't get it done, and you leave a guy wide open in front of the net and he scores a game-winning goal with 2 minutes to go. If they score two of the goals that they probably should have earlier in the period, we're not talking so much about that, but it cost them the game. It cost them 2 points against a division opponent. And those are the moments you're like, man, why can't they be better? So there's a lot to like about how the Lightning have played, but they're not getting any results for it. They're not getting rewarded for their work. And, we heard both Braden Point and Ryan McDonough last night use the word frustrated. And it is frustrating. Does that mean that they're a bad hockey team? No, I still think that this is a playoff team. I know the standings are tight. I know that the standings are closer than they certainly have been in the past number of years. You've got, a world-class goaltender. You've got world-class players. They're going to figure it out. I think that they're going to figure it out, and they're going to overcome some of these deficiencies. I think you just kind of have to get to the break here. Find a way to munch some points in these next 6 games before you get to the Four Nations break, and then you can kind of reset and get ready for the stretch run.
Yeah, I think my problem is, and I'm not the most pessimistic person out there, and I'm not fire this guy and the season's over. I do think they're a playoff team, but I feel like, and you're not wrong, but I just feel like the more we talk about this team, it's sounding more and more like a lot of the things that happened in 2019. Outscore teams to cover up warts, like not outplay teams, outscore teams. Like we know that that's not a recipe for success. When we're saying like they're a hardworking team, and I don't disagree with that because I do think they work hard, but like that's like telling somebody they're a good parent. Like, wow, great, you're a good parent. Like you should be a good parent. Like you should be working hard, right? Like the fact that we have to give credit to teams for being hardworking, like that's what all great teams are, right? You know what I mean?
But there's a difference though, right? Like every team works hard. Mm-hmm. If you're in the NHL and you're not working hard, you're not in the NHL. Right. I just think collectively this team, their work ethic is strong. That's kind of maybe the better way to put it, because they go out and they do bust their tails off. You see the passion, you see the enthusiasm, you see that they're trying to win games. So it's not like they're just kind of going through the motions. And we've seen teams like that in the past that kind of go through the motions. I think that 2019 team just kind of went through the motions because they knew they were so good they could outscore teams. I don't get that sense with this team. I don't think you can compare this team to that 19 team because they were so dominant in terms of how they could score goals. I just think the work ethic with this team is much better than that 19 team because they do know they have some deficiencies that they have to overcome.
So how do you fix those deficiencies? I know JJ Moser coming back is going to be a big help because I think it slots everything in. Yeah. But you and I both know it's defensively, it's not just the defense, right? No. It's the forwards being able to come back and
it's structure.
It's structurally huge. Turning the puck over. Cooch throwing the puck in front of the other net last night, Hedman with the turnover. Like, I think that's what gets me too, is that, okay, it can get better, but it's also up here where it's like some of their better players are making mistakes. It'd be one thing if it was Declan Carlisle and Mitchell Chafee making these mistakes, but when Kucherov and Hedman are making some of the mistakes too, that's where I think the Lightning really, yes, the break is going to help for Kucherov. Hedman's not going to get that break. But I think the top guys too need to take a look in the mirror a little bit and be like, we got to play better too, right? Smarter. I think they got to take ownership of this too.
They got to play smarter is what it comes down to, because you can't let the lack of scoring right now frustrate you to the point where you cheat the game. And I don't think I've seen that necessarily, but you have to play smarter. I mean, the play by Hetty last night, there's no reason to make that pass. Right? I mean, you're not thinking, and we know how elite players think. They never think that things are going to go the way they can't see it, right? They think that they see the things working out every time, and it doesn't always go that way. But Darren Radish took a spill in the corner in the offensive zone. He was slow to get up and kind of make his way back towards the bench. Hedman's under no pressure with the puck at his own blue line. And instead of recognizing that his defensive partner is not there, he could have easily just kind of taken that puck behind the net, let things kind of develop that way. But he tried to make a play. And that's where you just got to be smarter. And again, it gets highlighted because that ends up being the game-winning goal in the game, but it's still not a smart play. You have to be more aware. And I think that's what is probably frustrating with this team more than anything else, is they don't seem to make good decisions with the puck. Right. They don't seem to make good decisions when it comes time to, and look, I sort of highlighted a lot of this on the website during specifically the road trip, where you're watching the defensive zone, the coverage, like 5 guys are on the same area of the ice. Why are 5 guys in the same area of the ice? So we can talk about lack of depth scoring, which they don't have any. But to me, at the end of the day, the biggest thing this team needs to fix is their mental, their decision-making with the puck, and their coverage. And this is on both. This is on the players and the coaches, because the players have to make smarter decisions with the puck, and the coaches got to fix this. They've got to fix this. There is no reason to have 5 guys within a 10-square-foot radius of the puck and leaving so much open space behind you. That's how you get a Jake Evans to score a game-winning goal with 2 minutes to go, because you have everybody on the same side of the ice. That's the coaches. They have to fix that part. The players have to be smarter with the puck. That's my assessment of kind of how things need to change.
You know who you sound like right there.
Uh-oh. Chief?
That's all we hear. Why are there 5 guys in the corner? It happens all the time because we had this conversation the other day, and obviously I didn't play at pro hockey level, but I was a defenseman, and I knew that if the puck was in the corner, there was one guy that had to stay away. And I understand, like, I'm trying to think of, all right, well, they probably think not all 5 guys on the other team are going to be in there. So if they outnumber those guys, it gives them a better chance to retrieve the puck. But as we see with this Tampa Bay Lightning team, with 3 guys specifically, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, and Jake Gensel, they can be 1-on-3 and still control the puck. And when they pass the puck, what happens? You have advantages for you on other sides of the ice and a lot more room to play with. And it's weird to me that the Tampa Bay Lightning have players on their team that are able to function when they don't have the numbers advantage. But defensively, it doesn't resonate with them of like, hey, we got to make sure that we're a little bit more balanced on the ice. Is that defensive structure? Because Erik, there's puck battles for a while. It wasn't it's like little kids playing soccer. Like, oh, they just all went over here. Like at times they're sitting there and they're jockeying for the puck for 15, 20, 25 seconds. And they're not worried about the guy behind him at all. That's got to be a structure thing. Is that something that they've always done? Like, how do they not see that as NHL coaches and think that's not right?
Well, that's of the many times we've used the word frustrating, that's the most frustrating thing, because it happens game after game.
Right.
Even like when Guy Boucher came up, right, and he had this new system. And, we can talk about the forecheck and the whole situation with the Flyers when Peter Laviolette told his team not to go after the puck and it was a stalemate. And the essence of Guy Boucher's system was they wanted to surround the puck in the corner along the boards with 3 players. That didn't work. The Lightning are asking 5 players to do it, and it's not working. Like too many times. Like it logically, yeah, of course it makes sense. We're going to outnumber them. Of course we're going to win the puck. Those are National Hockey League players.
Right.
These are the best of the best. There's a good chance that they can win a puck battle even outnumbered. And when they do, now you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened too often that the Lightning are trying to outnumber, but they're not winning the puck. And, to your point, and at least with Guy's system, that second defenseman usually wasn't a guy who engaged in that puck battle. They did hold back. Now you're seeing both defensemen kind of get engaged, and just too many times you're leaving that front wide open, the middle area of the ice. They talk a lot about wanting to protect the middle area of the ice, but that's the area we keep talking about is left wide open, and like there's different ways to kind of talk about structure, because like if the puck's at the point, they collapse. They try and prevent shots from even getting there, right? They want to front shots. They want to make sure that they're taking away shooting lanes. But again, these are National Hockey League players who know how to get around this stuff. So they're not even challenging the puck, and to Chief's point, again, I sit and talk to Chief a lot and pick his brain. They give up the blue line so easily. They allow players, National Hockey League players, skilled players, time and space to make plays. They can make plays, right? So they're not challenging at the blue line. They're not even challenging at the red line. When this team is at their best, two things are happening. Their forecheck is relentless, and they're the ones winning the puck battles in the offensive zone. And they're holding, if not the red line, the blue line. And too many times we've seen them back off of the blue line and try and let the back checking forward take the puck. And when you do that, you allow a lot of space. And so to me, that's the part that's coaching. That's obviously a system taught thing. And it's just not consistent enough to prevent some of these goals against that are happening against the Lightning. And then when you're not scoring, that's when things get magnified.
Double E, I know the team practiced today at Amalie Arena at around 11:30. What can you tell us about who was on the ice, who wasn't on the ice, and all that jazz?
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I'm trying to fight off something
good.
that's happening. So I've been trying to get as much rest as I can. So I was not at practice today, and I have not checked my Twitter feed. So
all right, let me check it for you. That's why we have another Double E. We have all right. Well, it looked like Kucherov and Gergeson's out, receiving body maintenance days. No Andrei Vasilevsky on the ice either. And we know that it was an illness for Andrei Vasilevsky. Let's just hope that we see him back out there tomorrow. But how do you think Johansson played last night?
I thought he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think Johansson's been fine throughout most of the year. I like every time he gets a start, I got to hear it from a lot of Twitter followers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's another loss. Oh, it's like his numbers since November are in line with Vazzy's.
Yeah, the first couple of games were ugly, and it distorted the whole thing.
Yeah, but he gave his team a chance to win, just as he's done throughout most of his starts. I think I looked up the number heading into last night, so it's a little bit lower after last night's game. He was 5-3, 2.39 goals against, and .915 save percentage in his previous 8. Yeah. Save percentage is going to drop a little bit. 3 goals on 19 shots, I think. Yeah. 3 goals on 20 shots. So those numbers are going to go down a little bit. But he's done exactly what you would hope a goalie in his situation, knowing he was only starting in back-to-backs, so maybe once every 10 days, has done, and that's give his team a chance to win. The game against Chicago on Friday. That game could have gotten away from Tampa Bay. They were down 3-1. It could have been 4-1. He didn't let in the fourth goal. And the team did come back. So he's done his job. I don't have any problems with Johansson the way he's played. The Connor Bedard shot was just ridiculous.
Yeah, we didn't even know how it went in.
Yeah. I looked over you. I said, how in the hell did that puck go in? And then you look at the replay and you see the window is like this big. And somehow he found that corner. And, reading some of the Chicago writers, like he's been working on that shot. Like this is elite skill players. They can do things that you don't think humans should be able to do. And he found that window and just a ridiculous shot. You can't fault him on that one. The game-winning goal was a rebound off the end boards, not the goalie's fault. Maybe you'd like for him to come up with the save. on the one that ended up being the winning goal there late in the second period. I'm not faulting him for not stopping it. Maybe you want him to, but it is a clean look from the top of the circle, and I think he was screened a little bit.
Yeah, it was a quick release too. Drop pass, quick release. So I mean, kind of talking to Mission Espo about it before. Yeah, I'm with you. Should he have stopped it? No. Could he have stopped it? Yes. I think it's probably the best way to put it. We heard the announcement yesterday, Double E, about the quarter century teams, and I was I got 9 out of the 10 guys correctly, even though I had the defenseman switched. But we find out that it's Steven Stamkos, it's Martin St. Louis, Nikita Kucherov, with Victor Hedman and Dan Boyle, with Andrei Vasilevsky for the first team. Second team, Braden Point, Vinny LeCavalier, and Brad Richards, with Pavel Kubina and Ryan McDonough, with Ben Bishop as the goalie. I thought the only thing that I had different, I had Hobby Bullen as the goalie because he won the cup, and I just had Kubina and Boyle and McDonough switched. Any surprises there for the quarter century team? I think it's pretty cool what the NHL has done this year.
Yeah, I mean, in full fairness, I did have a vote in that quarter century team, and I had all of them except I actually had Andre Palat over Brad Richards.
Wow.
Which was a difficult decision for me to make because, Brad Richards obviously was an integral part of the Cup team in 2004 and the Conn Smythe winner, and, obviously a fantastic player. I just felt that Palat's overall impact, I keep thinking back to everybody wanted to play with Andre Palat because of just how he played the game, right? He's just a no-nonsense guy. His plus-minus numbers, I know that's not always indicative, but they were always so much better than most of the players on his team when it came to that. So he was a defensive winger, a guy that at least had some Selke consideration. He was never nominated for the award, but he had some Selke consideration. So I had Palat over Richards, and I too struggle with the decision between Habby Bullen and Bishop, because obviously Habby Bullen led them to the Cup. That always factors in, and I just again took into account overall impact, and it's hard to say that Habby Bullen didn't have an impact because he changed the way the team could play. And that's one thing that John Tortorella always talked about. Gave them some confidence, right? A young team with, the young Vinnies, the young Brads, the young Martys, the young Freddie Modines, gave them confidence to play, that if they made a mistake, there was a good chance that he could cover it up. But you look at, Bishop in a lot of ways did the same thing, right? He took that team to a Stanley Cup final in 2015. Right?
They weren't ready. They were not ready.
Right. They were ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, and he was here a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. He passed the torch to Andrei Vasilevsky. He understood that he was here basically as a quote unquote stopgap who turned into be a Vezina caliber goaltender. And
yeah, he was phenomenal.
So I did struggle with the Habby Bullen versus Bishop, and I just looked at overall length and impact that Bishop had compared to Habby Bullen. Having said that, you couldn't go wrong, I think, with either guy because Habby was such a great guy for a couple of years. But, there's this thing too. Going into the playoffs in 2004, they weren't sure who was going to be the number one guy, whether it was going to be Habby Bullen or John Graham, because Habby Bullen wasn't playing that well and John Graham was. It sounds ridiculous to think otherwise right now, but at that time there was some debate. So that's why. So it's interesting. It's nice that the league is doing this, because it kind of brings a spotlight to some players for franchises that maybe, didn't realize the impact that they had. And I think that's kind of the way that this Lightning team was. And it's great because you have to select from the 2004 team that won a cup. And then you have a chance to select from this generation of players who won 2 cups.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, there was anybody else, like who would have been the 5th defenseman?
That is an excellent question. Anton Strawman could be there. He was a steady presence and a really good partner. Sergachev would be in that conversation. Corey Saric might be in that conversation. there's in the forwards. I mean, if you're going to start going into 9 and 12 forwards, that's when it starts to kind of really become interesting.
Yeah, then I think Palat makes the team. Killorn is another guy that I thought on the outside, could be in that kind of periphery there. I thought the defenseman was tough, man, because there's been some change. There's been, do you go with Jason Cullimore? Do you go with a guy that's, you know what I mean? Guys weren't there that long,
Darren Rumble.
Darren Rumble. There you go.
Hey, his name's on the cup.
You got that right, buddy. All right. So what is the big thing that the Bolts got to focus on tomorrow night and kind of the rest of this kind of homestand before we take this break?
Well, they're going to catch the Kings in the second half of back-to-back. LA plays at Florida tonight. So it's the rarity that seems like the Lightning catching a team coming in, the Lightning are rested, and they're catching a team coming off a back-to-back. So you have that kind of going for them. It's find a way to score some goals. You do that, you start to take some of this pressure off, because I don't have the number in front of me. I think they have not won a game this year where they've scored fewer than 3 goals.
That's crazy to me.
Which is like, you have to be able to win games 2-1.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to do that. You think back to the California trip, right? Like, they lost 2-1 to San Jose. They lost 2-1 to LA. The Anaheim game was basically a 2-1 game until late in the third period when they were pushing, right? Like, you have to be able to win those kind of games. They haven't been able to do that. So, yeah, obviously defensively they need to be better, but you have to score some goals in this league. So I think if they do that, it'll take some of the pressure off. And we'll see. Like, that first game back from a road trip tends to be a struggle. Right. And I don't think they struggled last night. Obviously they could have played better. I thought they sagged when they didn't score on that 4-minute power play. I think their game sagged. They were 5 seconds away from a momentum boost after killing off the 5-on-3, and then Connor Bedard gets off this ridiculous shot to tie the game. I think they sagged for the rest of the second period. And then again, having to chase the game, I thought they pushed well enough in the third period. They didn't. I mean, again, Soderblom with some of the saves, it's that kept that game from tilting back in Tampa Bay's favor. But I think you score a couple of goals early. You take some of that pressure off, and they can kind of get back to playing a little bit more in tune or focused, and it just takes some of that burden off of them against a very good LA team who has struggled of late. I think I saw they're 2-5-1 in their last 8 heading into tonight. So as good of a season as LA has had, they've kind of had their struggles of late too, as all teams do. All teams will go through a stretch. All good teams will go through a stretch during the season where you're kind of struggling and you can't find ways to pick up wins, and you have to fight through it. So that's what they have to do. Nolan Pratt.
Nolan Pratt. Okay.
I'm answering a question down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Former Bolt team man who's an assistant coach.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Nolan Pratt.
Nolan Pratt, who saved that 2004 playoffs because Jason Cullimore went down in the first round against the Islanders. And Prater had to step up and take on the role of Jason Cullimore and did it fantastic. He did a fantastic job to the point where they kept Pratt in the lineup even when Cullimore was healthy. Cully didn't come back until Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final against Philadelphia. That's how long Cullimore was out, and then they ended up dressing 7 defensemen for that. So Nolan Pratt was a big part of why the team was able to survive that series against Philadelphia and obviously go on to beat Calgary in the final.
That's why you want to subscribe to lightninginsider.com, because that's the kind of stuff that you get from our guy Erik Erlendsson. Use that promo code JNZ, get $10 off, not just this year, but every recurring year after that. Erik_Erlendsson, that's a K, not a C, 2 S's after the D on Twitter /XE. Appreciate you, my brother. Thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow right at Amalie Arena.
Thanks, and be kind to Dan Lucas. He's one of my favorites.
Nah, I can't do it. See you, brother. All right, good stuff there. Erik Erlendsson, lightninginsider.com. Yeah, man, it's a perfect gift too. Holidays, birthdays, you want to just get somebody something, you help out local, support local. That is so important. We mentioned this yesterday with Colleen Wright and just everybody that we have here on the program. We have so many people from around the country, right? Because I try to give you some in-depth analysis from other markets. what's happening in New York, what's happening in Detroit and Boston. We go all over the globe trying to get some firsthand accounts of what is going on in the sports world. But the major, I think that the hub, right? The majority of the people that we're going to have on are people here in the Tampa Bay area. We have to support local. And I'm talking about every endeavor from TV to radio to local podcast and to newspaper. Help out and support local. We haven't had many better local representatives than our guy, Dan Lucas, and a great shirt to join the show. Manchester United, my guy. You see the there you go, buddy. WFLA's own. I saw you change the Twitter handle already. It's already Dan Lucas Tampa. You're making
it's love hate our Man U loyalty. I mean,
brother. I said this on the show last week, and I brought it up, and it was the day I was going to talk about it. The day like Liam Cohen bounced, and I was like, oh shit, this is a conversation. What team has the most love hate fan base? I actually did end up talking about it, but Man U's got to be on the list. Man U,
yes,
and the Cowboys and some of these other
yes,
they're so much different than everybody else, because it's one thing to have a team where everybody thinks they're good and then they shit the bed. Man U is completely different. Man U in one season will literally beat the greatest team on the planet and then lose to a team with half of the guys on their team are electricians in the offseason.
Right.
Crazy.
You know what I love about Premier League fans is you can say, well, our team is shite. That's what they say over there. But if you're from the outside and you say something bad about that team, it's war.
Yeah,
it's war. So you don't criticize other fan bases unless you're ready for war.
You got that, right,
brother. It's the cycle. It's always a cycle, in my opinion. But I've been a Man U guy since the early '90s. I was an Eric Cantona guy, and then a David Beckham culture. That was really my time, and it's just been terrific ever since. And even in its tragic state, it's just terrific to watch. And
it's terrifically bad.
I think they should have a contest when they finally demo Old Trafford. They should have a contest and have one fan who suffered just push the thing down, and
I love that.
Maybe that could change the whole. Yeah, exactly. Change the whole future of the franchise for sure.
Dan Lucas, long time, 30 years covering sports here in the Tampa Bay area, hanging him up no longer with WFLA. You've been such a staple to Tampa sports here, man. What went into the decision and of you just kind of like moving on, man, and just kind of this next chapter in your life?
Well, 30 years is a long time. 23, almost 24 spent here at News Channel 8. I spent a good about 7 years up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Johnstown, Altoona State College was my market. We were right next to Pittsburgh, right smack in the middle of Pennsylvania. So Penn State country, and that's how I got my start, and then had a lot of breaks along the way to get back home here to Tampa. But it is, agonizing decision, all mine. My contract just came to an end, and I elected to go a different route. So many contracts, many news directors, many bosses over the years, and many friends and colleagues along the way. And and you do this long enough, unfortunately, people we've lost along the way, and so it's just time to kind of. Right now, I'm taking a pause.
Good.
And then I got hand in the fire, as they say, and so hopefully we'll sooner rather than later get cooking again. And the future is going to be here, most likely here home, the Bay Area. We'll see what I'm doing next, and kind of going back and forth between what's my passion, which obviously my passion is this industry, and then the old money grab.
Oh yeah.
Can I just go ahead and make the money grab? I mean, can we just do that? I got a lot of years left to work, so it's going to be a chance to get on a run, doing something different. But this job has been so rewarding. I can't even begin to. I've been trying to thank everybody I can think of over the past days and weeks, and I'm gonna at some point forget somebody, and I feel awful about it, but it's just been great. So yeah, new direction, nothing nothing, that was, nothing ugly, nothing,
Good.
so no sour grapes. Don't feel sorry for old Dan Lucas. He's ready to rock and roll, do something different. My son was born while I was working at Channel 8. He's now in
Wow.
college. so that's a long tenure. He's a soccer player. He just finished his first season of college soccer.
Nice.
And it's one of the things that kind of weighed on me was all the games and things I've missed
Right.
over the years. And he's in college now. So that's a wake up call for me. Yeah, dad was always kind of went with Dan, the sports guy,
Right.
and he always has always rolled with it. And I think he thought it was a neat career, but I just want to sit and watch him and not have to come up with a damn post game interview.
Oh my God, they lost again. Let's go in there,
Right,
Dan.
exactly. What happened? Why'd you suck today?
Hey, Dan, they lost in the finals. Let's go.
Right, exactly.
We've done this before. And
Right.
Dan, you're a great example of this. People ask me like the best part of our jobs, right? And I always say it's not the games, it's not the places that we went, it's the people that we work with. And you work with one of the absolute best in Bob Hansen. Like, just talk about your relationship with him. For those that don't know, Bob is I don't think it's hyperbole to say he's the best camera guy, the best photog in the Bay Area, without a doubt. His dry sense of humor, like there is not a dull moment around Bobby Hansen. But I know you guys are thick as thieves, good buds, and have traveled, around the world together covering Tampa Bay sports.
Yep, we have been around the world together, and Bob is. I can't. You try to come up with a description of certain people. I've called Bob a magician. The most talented ever. None of them are appropriate. They don't fit. He's a guy that, in our little world of local sports, is the entire thing. You see the face. You watch the stories. You see the interviews. Bob Hansen is behind all of it. Just a masterful, videographer, shooter, editor, puts together just absolute magic on a daily basis. And, when he has time to sit down and really work on something, it is untouchable what he does. So Bob is really one of my best friends in my life over the years of not just working together, but sitting around. You go on these road trips. At some point, you're having one at the bar, and so you talk about things in life, and so we know each other really well in that sense, and it's been a pleasure to work with him. And even the times, oh man, I remember one time we were out. The Bucks played the Raiders out in Oakland, and I was dilly dallying around. He just went off on me, and I snapped back. I go, I am well aware of the damn East Coast time. Thank you for reminding me. And that's how that's when
Yeah.
you got it going on, man. When
Right.
you can do that, and at the end of the night, go, all right, let's go get one. And so he's just one of the great ones. We've been through a lot of it you really can't say.
Right. Yes, this is a family-friendly show.
Can't say. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
we can talk about our meals that we've gone together. I remember going to when we were in Colorado eating venison. I was like, venison? What the hell's
Venison.
let's eat a venison burger.
Oh yeah, no, the Stanley Cup final with the Lightning and the Avalanche. We're all tight knit, us locals. So we ate dinners together. We went to a Rockies game together
Yes, the
on an off
Rockies
day,
game.
and
That
we're
was
sitting
so
down.
great.
I remember at dinner, you and I had to look after Phil Esposito one night after dinner.
Oh my God, Dan, I totally forgot about that.
Jay,
Oh
you
my
get the
God.
left arm, I'll get the right
Oh my
arm,
God.
and we'll get him. We'll get him there. We'll get him there, baby.
God.
Don't
And
worry
he's like,
about it.
nobody needs to walk me to my hotel. Phil, we are all walking together. There's like
We're all
15 of
walking
us.
together.
Nobody needs to walk me. Phil, we're all walking in the same direction.
Exactly.
He's just, and I've said it on the show before. Like, I didn't want to sit next to Phil, not because I didn't want to talk to him, but because like I talk to him every game. So I wanted somebody else to get, and he comes over. I guess I know where I'm fucking sitting tonight. And I'm like, oh my God, let's get the wine going. I'm like, oh.
One of my first I've known Phil a long time. One of my sports moments, um, you hit the nail on the head, and I even said this in my little message on Twitter the other night. It's not so much plays and trophies that I've seen raised. It's the thing that no one else gets to do that I was a part of or witnessed, or in the night that the Lightning won the Stanley Cup in '04. We all had different assignments where to be in the arena for the final horn, and I was up in the radio booth with Michigan and Espo, and so as soon as the horn went, and it was just so magical. No one knew what to do. No one knew what to
Mhm.
say. Michigan's doing his thing, and Esposito is just, it's like watching your child achieve something.
Mhm.
And the man was in tears, and he gets up, and he's look turns around, and he just wants to embrace somebody. And I'm the guy standing there, barely knows me, pulls me in for the tightest hug I've ever had in my life. And that was my really first full interaction with Phil Esposito. And then I was never afraid to talk to him after that. And we talked about that moment every once in a while, have a good laugh. But he's uh he's a gem, and there's so many guys that in over 30 years of doing this I've come cross paths with, and that's what I cherish the most is those relationships, and just listening to the guys talk, man. I do a lot more listening than talking, especially when I'm
Definitely.
around the great ones.
Yeah. Who is your favorite player to cover?
Favorite player to cover, gosh, I would say favorite player, I would have to go with uh probably either Marty St. Louis or James Shields.
Really? Okay.
Those were two of my favorites. Uh, and why? Because everything other than what they did,
Right.
Marty always had time for a chat. James Shields, I talked to him quite a bit, especially in the season before he was off to Kansas City.
Mhm.
Actually ran into him at a Cracker Barrel once. And my son was there, and he said hi to my son. My son had his Rays hat on. Time was
Oh my
perfect
god.
timing. But I'd say those two guys, they all blend together to an extent over the years of guys who are in the middle of their playing career. And sometimes you think you're in good standing, but you're not. It's kind of weird sometimes. Like for
Right.
instance, I'll give you an example. I'd say a guy that has really become a good friend is Rondé Barber over the years, but it wasn't really till after Rondé's career had ended that my relationship really started to take shape with Rondé. So he was already buddies with guys in our office, but it just took a while. I was the new guy, and so it took a while to develop. And once it did, it was a joy. I mean, so it's been uh, terrific in that sense. But covering Rondé as a player, he was a guy in the Bucks, so
Yeah. Well, there's
I
that
enjoyed it.
that's a great point that you bring up because there is like a little bit of a there's a little barrier there even when they're still playing because there's a professionalism to it. And I felt exactly what you're saying last night because I'm doing a story on Ryan McDonough. And
Hmm.
I'm yesterday I talked to Patrick Maroon after the game. I talked to Victor Hedman and Erik Erlendsson during the day, and like they were being very friendly. And then after the game, like I see how they like talk to each other, and it's just a reality thing where I think sometimes people get so this misconception, like, oh yeah, they're your friends. Like, no, this is like you could be friendly, but there's a difference
Yes,
between friendly and friends. Like, this is still kind of a work thing right here, you know, and it's
right.
I can understand how people may think it's something different. It's almost like fall in love with the first girl that you see dancing at the club, you know, like she doesn't love
Exactly.
you, she just wants your money. Favorite coach to cover?
Oh, easy. Joe Madden.
Yeah, it's
Joe
not close.
Madden. Joe Madden by 100 miles, and I've covered a ton of great coaches and have had relationships with great coaches, all the way up to to saying good night the other night. And Buccaneers coaches over the years. Sometimes the Bucks had coaches who were outside the building, had fans with torches lit, and I'm inside the building talking about what they ordered for Christmas on Amazon. Yeah. And so, but Joe Madden was and is my favorite of all time, because whether it was 15 seconds in passing during batting practice, or one day when I was sitting in the dugout because I stole a bunch of bubble gum, Joe came in and sat down next to me, and I thought, you're not gonna say anything about the bubble gum, right? And we sat and talked for about 9, 10 minutes. Um, we never ever talked about baseball. We talked about so many
Mhm.
other things. Music, that was his thing. That's how we connected. And then we just, over the years, conversations, which went to last year. He was doing his Thanksmas dinner over in Clearwater
Mhm.
for the folks at the shelter. And man, we just kind of picked up where we left off. It was I hadn't talked to him in like 7 years. And it was just great again. So I love the man, and I just I miss him dearly. And it's funny because Kevin Cash, I love him too,
Right.
different in a different way
Mhm.
than Joe Matt. I just felt like Joe just uplifted me
Yeah.
every time. I was never his intent. It's just the way he was. You when you walked away from the conversation, just feeling better.
It's so funny how that like him and Tony Dungy, like when they walk out of the room, you
Yeah,
go, and you're just smiling for no reason. You're like, why am I so happy right now? And I think that's just
exactly.
good people. Who is the one like under the radar player or coach that isn't a big name that you had a good time covering, or you just remember being around?
Under the radar for a player, um, I would have to say some of our tennis and golf, Bay Area folks who made it out of here,
Mhm.
and not even like a Nelly Corda, for instance,
Right.
who's a star, but Brittany Lincecum over the years,
Mhm.
the guys in tennis coming in over the years, kind of the off the radar guys for me. But if you really wanted to go with some of the players, I would say at the time, Matt Grothy, when he was quarterback at USF, just because we had a relationship with him from high school. Um, so he played in a state championship game against Armwood. And so, we were able to establish that before he got to USF. And then, of course, he's part of one of the greatest eras of USF football. And then his name took off, but he treated us like the local guys. So
Yeah.
it was always different with him. So that kind of the under the radar. There's a lot of guys like that, Jay, a
Mhm.
ton. Some role players on the team that you just hit it off with. Johnny Damon
Mhm.
was a bigger name, especially a free agency name, and when he came to the Rays, he was a name. But he was a role player on that team, and I always enjoyed chatting with him. I'll tell you a funny story about Johnny Damon. Um, he went to Dr. Phillips High School in Orlando,
Mhm.
as did my very first college roommate,
Oh.
who was on the golf team at FSU. And this guy, let's just say my roommate, he could party. This guy knew how to throw down. And one day I had to get him up. I'm like, don't you guys play today? And he goes, yeah. I like literally got him up. He was on the tee in about an hour, and he was not in good shape. He went out and shot par.
Oh my
I'd
gosh.
say so. Years later, I'm sitting down with Johnny Damon at the Trop, and we're miking him up for a sit down interview, and I'm just chatting with him. I said, Johnny, did you know this guy, Dr. Phillips, back in the day? Because we're all similar in age. And he goes, yeah, I know who he is. He goes, he was a little bit older than me, but I went to school with his brother, man. And I'll tell you what, those dudes could party. And so that Johnny Damon, that was our connection, the Dr. Phillips connection with these two, the Ziegler brothers. Man, those guys could party. And then I'm like, yeah, and then go out and shoot 70 on the course. It's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. I want to ask you
Exactly.
about some of our local meet because, like, it's you have covered every single team, every single sport. Who is that one person that you've worked with over the years that was just like uber talented, or just because, like, I look at it, for example, I'll give you an example. Trevor Sycamore was a guy that when he was with Pewter Report, I was like, this guy won't be here very long. Like
Right.
he's going to be, and he's Draft Network now. He's like one of the main guys on Pro Football Focus. You see him on Dan Patrick and the NFL Network. Who's that one person you worked here for over 2 decades that, you know, some of the more talented people that you worked with, maybe, you know, in a different TV station or a writer, like who do you just look at and be like, wow, that person's legit?
So many, too many. Trevor's on the list.
Yeah.
By the way, Trevor Sikkema and I, he used to do some stuff with us when he was with Pewter
Yeah.
Report. But he and I had this great moment together. The Bucks were playing at the Seahawks, and so we got up to the press box, set our stuff down, and at the same time, we both discovered in the back of the press box that there was a Starbucks barista making like it was like literally a Starbucks in the press box, and she's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, can I get you a latte, Trevor?" And she's just churning out coffee the whole game. So that was
That's great.
Trevor's moment. But you know, Trevor's a good one. A lot of writers that left over the years. Stephen Holder, is now in. I apologize.
No, you're good.
So I just, you know, what's funny, based on that question, it's kind of our former interns that I have seen gone on to great things. Jordan Giorgio is now CBS Sports Network she's doing a lot of college football studio. She was a good one who went on to do something. We had a guy named Max Gershberg, called him Mad Max. This kid, I sent him to the Trop one day, and I said, "Max, Chicago has asked us if we can get a soundbite with Ozzie Guillen for their show." And I said, "Just go in there, let the writers do their thing. Just get the mic in there, and we'll send it up there." Okay. So I said, because Max was aggressive, and we get back, he's get the tape, and it's the first question is Max. Skip, noticed you guys hit and run in that situation last night. I thought I'd get your thoughts on that. I'm like, Max, all I did was ask you to hold the microphone. Just not even act, don't even talk. And he goes, "I know, but I thought of a question first." So I'm like, "Okay, thank you." So Mad Max goes on. He wanted to be on TV so bad. And then he changed gears in the middle of his internship and decided so he got into production. He went to New York, and you guys remember the show Real Sports with Brian Gumbel?
Yeah.
Yeah, he became a producer for that show and eventually climbed to the top of the ladder, producing those segments, and went all over the world. And to me, he's a great success story, someone I'm proud of, who is still doing the business, and has gone on to do great things. So Max Gershberg, the intern, we've had a lot get around. Stephen Holder from the Times, Trevor Sikkema going on, who's going to get bigger and bigger. It's only a matter of time for NFL Network steals them.
Right.
And then we've had just even before me, like Jay Crawford, you know, those guys making it out to bigger and better things. It's been terrific to watch.
Yeah, we've had so many incredible people here in the Tampa Bay area. Probably none more talented than you, my friend. You will be sorely missed around the ballpark and the rink and the field. And we wish you all the success in the world. I thank you for your colleagueship, your friendship, and all the times that we've spent together. This isn't the end, just the start of a new, beautiful chapter. So I can't wait to see what you're going to do next. But thank you so much for your stories today, all your memories and all your hard work over the years, traveling all over the world, covering Tampa Bay sports. So thanks so much for the time today, brother. Go Man United. As always, we got to get together finally now that your schedule's opened up a little bit and watch a game. But thank you so much, brother, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yep, I could be around. I'm staying in the area, and I could be in the game in some fashion, but just this chapter is over for me, and hoping to do something a little bit different moving forward, and being a dad, that would be nice.
Landukas, as I call him, my guy Landukas.
There you go.
Thanks. I appreciate you, Dan. We'll talk to you again. Have a great rest of your week, buddy.
All right, Jay, be good, brother.
You got it, man. It doesn't get much better than our guy, Dan Lucas. When you work with people like that, when you work with people that you consider friends, I mean, you're really not working a day in your life. All right, I'm going to cut it off right here because you know why? I got to head over to the Dignitary Tea and Coffee House because Beckles and Recher, 3 p.m. today, right here. Make sure you like and subscribe right here on this YouTube channel. Big show tomorrow. We got Rich Hollenberg joining us. We got Rick Stroud joining us. We have Ed Encina joining us. We might have another guest joining us as well, trying to work on that as we get ready for this big weekend ahead. A big thank you to everybody. Dan Lucas joining us on the program. Erik Erlendsson joining us on the program. Josh Queipo joining us on the program today. And you for all the love and support. I cannot thank you enough. I am probably going to be doing the show from Emily Arena tomorrow, but if not, we'll be right here. But all I do know is that tomorrow at noon, it'll be right here with you talking all things Tampa Bay sports. That'll wrap it up for me. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Jay Recher Podcast.